does the 11th, which is their state of play or their showcase for the Xbox, what's taking the place of E3, like, is it better for them just to have Redfall out so they don't have to talk about that anymore, so they can focus in on what's coming up next, which the big title being Starfield, the big titles being the announced games that we haven't seen, like Perfect Dark, like Fable, like like all Avowed, etc. Like, I think that's really more about it. I think at the end of the day, they made the call. I think it's the wrong call. I think they would have served themselves far better to at least wait till the game was ready to go. But I think also, just like we talked about with the pandemic and with other development, I think what you're also seeing is a cost of that on developers and studios and not understanding the nature of timing and management across the course of the last couple of years specifically. So I give them, as a developer, probably more grace than the internet likes me to do. At least the comment section has been very entertaining for me to read from people who so you work in development, like I'm like, yeah, man, like I live this stuff, so it is what it is. So that's my honest take. I've had fun. I want to keep playing it. The only thing that's prevented me from playing more of Redfall is just taking care of the baby in the middle of the night and getting up and going to work now. So it is literally a limitation of time, rather than the desire to play anything else. And so since it doesn't run on my Switch, and since I could try to get it to run on Steam Deck, I don't actually have that desire because of the bugs. I'd rather just make it something easy to enjoy. Any thoughts, Chris?
I assume that they were told by somebody who was trying to watch the money that you should release it now without bugs, and they were like, well, that's not one of the options. And they're like, we'll just do it. So I've worked in sales and stuff where I've had to handle product releases and stuff and had to deal with when we get customer complaints, and a lot of times they're like, yeah, but could you just do it sooner and good? And you're like, that's not where we're at. So I assume they just got down to the wire and they were aware of the distance between it and other titles and in the event, and they were like, this is where it fits. And I'm like, okay, but it's not ready. And they're like, yeah, but this is where it fits. And so off it went. So, and that frustrates people because I did see a tweet. I've seen this a lot lately where people are getting frustrated with the $70 price tag. They're adjusting from the $60. Yeah. But remember that, like, Zelda Ocarina of Time was a $59.99 game in November of 1998. And when people are getting frustrated at the cost of games, I do want to note that while, yes, there are games that are not considered full price games, and there always have been, and there are games that offer experiences well beyond what the standard price is, there always have been. Ocarina of Time was a standard priced game, and people were sticker shock over $60. But that was in November of 1998. And if you had $60 in November of 1998, and you went to the grocery store and bought groceries or tried to pay rent, that is the buying power in today's market of $111. Games have more content, more voice acting, more cutscenes, and all of this. So, like, what people are expecting from a game just doesn't line up with what they're costing. And that's where the industry is really struggling, because they're trying to ship this stuff in a way that they can make that $111. And that's why we're seeing battle passes and microtransactions and games ship with bugs, is because the budget, like, I don't want to pay $111 for a game. I assume you don't want to pay $111 for a game, but that's where the revenue is. That $60 they were getting per customer back then. And the customer base has not swelled to a size that justifies that without just increasing total overhead.
Now, Velta says if they release Redfall actually with a $30 or $40 price tag, then maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But a retail price of $70 is not great. And it's interesting because I've seen this on the Sony side, like PS5 diehards frustrated at that price point. And with the exception of Nintendo, you put Nintendo over in the corner because they ain't going to lower their price. It's the hype tax. Like, $70 is not the price of games outside of Nintendo. It's the hype tax that people pay. And I see that the Screw saying that, yes, it's about inviting people into the Game Pass subscription, and that's the platform.
You pay for 1 month of it, play Redfall and stop, and you've saved yourself a bundle.
You could pay $1. I think they still might have that option. I don't know if they got rid of that one, but yeah, it's, the core is they want those Game Pass subscribers, because for Microsoft, Game Pass is the platform. A lot of people still think Xbox is the platform, even the diehard Xbox fans. And that's not the case. It's all about Game Pass. And I think a lot of what they're doing as a part of their acceleration, literally is just trying to put Game Pass everywhere, right? Like letting Game Pass run on a PlayStation. I don't think anybody would have an issue. That would be the cloud gaming version of that. But that opens them up to people who might be interested in playing the collection of games. And so we'll have to wait and see if that ends up being, an ultimate success from what's reported, whether you believe them or not. It seems like they're making a lot of money, from that each and every year. And you and I were talking this weekend about like right now, you're not feeling like you're getting the value out of Game Pass. And for me, like playing Redfall, I got value out of it. I wasn't subscribed for Redfall. A lot of people saying that subscription's it's just the way of hiding a pre-order. I was like, yeah, if you went and subscribed to Game Pass last year for Redfall and didn't play anything else beyond outside that, you're a fool. And I don't have a way to talk with you because I can't understand that logic of why you would do something like that. But outside of that hypothetical scenario for somebody who doesn't exist, when it comes down to it, like, yeah, I think that's kind of the big difference. And one of the reasons why, like when it comes to PlayStation and Xbox games, generally speaking, I start to think about that $30 to $40 price range. And the question is how soon does the price drop to $30 to $40? And generally speaking, depending on the game's quality, that's probably a better measure of the game's quality rather than any number out of number review or, oh, it's a $70 game. Like if you got $70 and you want to go toss that at Redfall or Starfield or Final Fantasy, a 16, I would venture to bet 16 is probably the best bet out of those games in quality wise, but that's also, I'm a fan of that. I'm sure there's gonna be people who say that about 16, that it doesn't feel like a $70 game. That in and of itself is what's being the narrative right now. And I can't get behind it. I just can't, because I just don't, I don't know. I've been playing games. I've seen the price stuff long enough, but there is this weird connection of what a $70 game should be. And I think that $10 price jump has made everybody's expectations jump exponentially more than just $10. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've always kind of said that it's kind of the dollar of joy per dollar per hour of joy. So the game should have gotten 10 hours longer as far as how much you can enjoy them. That doesn't mean like crappy buggy hours. That means like real enjoyable entertainment. I don't know. Like when you look at some of these games have great replayability, some don't. But I do feel that outcry from the $60, $70, like it's been a long time coming. It's been a long time to get them to start moving where 70 was the standard. I think it was first proposed back for like PlayStation 3 and people are like, well, I'm just not going to do that. And it's like, okay, well, here we are. So now everybody seems on board that the $70 is fine, but there's always been the case of like, is two games at the same price point worth the same as each other? Mm-hmm. And you don't know. Like we just don't live in a world where you can play the game and then they charge you at the end. Like it's some weird like buffet where they just weigh you when you walk in and then you just eat food and then they weigh you on the way out. And they're like, all right, well, here you go.
Here you go.
Enjoy this much. So like there's no way to do that. So I think you end up with effectively a guess. Some people, $70 is not a lot of money. Some people, they get very little time to game and they like one specific genre. And so they will pay $70 to stay in that genre over and over and over and over. Other people, they're picking up one game a year, 2 games a year. And so if that game burns them, it really stings.
Yeah.
So the other thing is when we start to talk about like, is it a $70 game? Whose $70 are we talking about? Mm-hmm. You're a developer that's the sole provider for your family and you have 6 children. Mm-hmm. I am a YouTuber, so substantially lower on the earning side of things, but I have a wife that works and we don't have kids. How we value a dollar is wildly different.
Yeah, hands down.
So who's $70? Like I will tell you any game is worth 70 of somebody else's dollars.
Yeah,
like, if you want to buy me a game for $70, that's really easy for me to spend. The question is it worth your own dollars to spend on your own entertainment? And that's it's hard to answer that without, once again, now we're back to like, how do you avoid spoilers and things like that? Because it's like, well, I want to know if it's good. And then you look up reviews and then something gets ruined about it. So there's just a lot of faith.
So Valtis asked a question about how do you justify against other $70 games? I'd like to take a second to answer that. But first, Hazard joining the members over on YouTube. Thank you so much for the support of our content and kind of our vision for how we like to cover games in this regard. So we appreciate you for doing that. I hope you enjoy your perks, your special role in Discord. We also have seen several gifts and members and Prime subs and stuff like that over on the Twitch side. Sorry, I don't have that list up in front of me, but hopefully you guys really enjoy your role in Discord and your support and your emotes and so much more. So thank you guys for that. Thanks also for being here. Thanks for likes. Now, as kind of the final question for today's show, before I go back to that development work and get this sprint wrapped up, as I'm kind of easing back in after being off, for a week and a half to help with the baby. How do you justify against other $70 games? I think it's actually an interesting equation that's a part of the problem within gaming right now. First and foremost, if it's a sequel to a genre or a game that I enjoy. So if you're saying, hey, Brian, new Gears of War is coming out. Oh, genre game that I enjoy. The risk, I think, is less. And that's really what we're talking about is risk. Am I going to spend this money and am I going to be satisfied by spending this money? So in this case, I have to rule out Gears of War and anything on Xbox because that's all going to be in Game Pass. That's already covered. The risk is as low as it could possibly be in my mind. There's no risk of trying out a game and seeing if I enjoy it, because I can just put it down and not feel like I have to get value out of it. But in terms of like saying, hey, Brian, you're going to play Final Fantasy 16 and some other new IP, a new IP is definitely not going to get my money right out the gate. They have to do a lot. They have to offer a demo. They have to get my hands on it. I saw people asking about like Chrono Odyssey and things like that. Like there's going to be a lot of marketing and you got to start to understand how like the hype and the marketing is being used on you. And it's okay to be hyped. It's okay to be excited. But in order, like, Ashes of Creation doesn't have my money. They haven't earned that money yet. They're a new IP with a lofty list of goals. So when it comes down to these things, if it's an established franchise, Final Fantasy, easy. It's an easy yes. Because if that game does screw me, I still have so much more bank in terms of like good faith in the company and the franchise that I don't have to worry about. I don't feel screwed by Forspoken, which was kind of funny. Somebody was saying, because like I'm a hypocrite because I was shitting on Forspoken. Did no such thing. I enjoyed it. It's a 20-hour game, but is it worth $70? No, but I don't feel bad for spending the $70 because I was willing within Square Enix's, and the faith that I have in that company to try out the game. Turns out I like it. My kind of game, not a game for everybody. That's how I do it. It's like literally, and that's where a part of the problem comes into. You end up having this sequel fatigue. The reason why sequels are so prevalent is because it reduces the risk. More people are willing to try out a game to something that works rather than risk something that doesn't. What do you think, Chris?
I think it's down to what Mr. B68 says in chat. Like, what else is available at the time? If I want to go see a movie this weekend with a friend on Friday after we go to dinner, I am going to look up the movie theaters within reasonable driving distances of where we both live. And I am going to see what is showing at around, let's say, 8 o'clock. And that is who you have to beat. You don't have to beat every movie ever made. You have to beat the other movies that are all priced about the same. There's a couple movie theaters in my area that are a little bit more than others and maybe offer different showings. And that's all you're competing against. I really enjoyed John Wick 4. I saw that in theaters. The movie I saw before that in theaters was I took my dad for Father's Day to go see Top Gun. I don't go see movies in theaters very often. If I go see a movie, for Mother's Day right around the corner, my mom wants to go see a movie and we go see one, it is not competing against Top Gun. And so it does not matter to me if it is more or less valuable than Top Gun per dollar as far as whether or not I'll give them the money. It's an interesting thought exercise. Oh, that was not nearly as good as, but like it isn't going to factor into is that the movie we're going to see? We've already decided we want to see a movie. I've already decided that of the budget that I have and the time that I have available, those are the restrictions. And we're just going to do the best among what is out there. And so I think, how does something like Redfall make it? Well, you have people that $70 is not an issue. They want to play a game this month. They want it to have vampires in it. That was their criteria. And all of a sudden, Starfield's not a contender. Final Fantasy 16 is not a contender. Like, you remove all of these. God of War, not a contender. And so that's how games like this thrive. Now, the number of people that meet that criteria is less. And so that's where you start to see their sales numbers dip. And those are the games that typically have to go hit the bargain bin a little bit quicker. Because a game that appeals to more people has a little bit longer tail on it.
It's also interesting as then you factor in streaming, content creation, and how much life that has in it, because the more you keep hearing about these games, you see the games have longer tails than they did, 20 years ago. But that does mean that some people start designing their games for the algorithm and for the streaming, and that can cause frustration as well. And then you get like real gems. I think overall, like we still get the same number of really good quality games by ratio. But that means we still get as many mid-core and low tier games as well, shovelware, etc. And so when it comes down to it, like buyer beware. Don't pay a hype tax, especially if it's like if $70 is make or break for you. Hype will be applied to you. You just have to, in a way, as best you can, turn it off. But guys, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Thank you all so very much for joining us. Thanks for the amazing conversations in chat. Thank you guys so much for the support. I'm going to go ahead and hit end broadcast. But before I do, Chris, why don't you tell them what you got coming up this week?
This week, we're collabing with Aores and Archives on Thursday, and every Thursday until all but the one right before FanFest. We have the live letter on Friday. I believe that's like some ungodly hour in the morning, as usual. That will be in Japanese only. We'll be using the Reddit Discord. You can always hop over to Twitch and type in !translate or !Reddit to get a link to that if you'd rather just go watch the live stream yourself and use that translation there that's provided by the amazing people over there. And I am working through cleaning my inventory, deep purging. I found an invitation to your wedding in Final Fantasy XIV today from 2016. And so I am just deep purging. I've been throwing away all sorts of things. I threw away some old, I threw away a Starlight present from 2016 or something, and one from 2017. And just like anytime people feel like they're tight on inventory, which I did, I felt like I'm tight on inventory. You start to realize it's like, yeah, giving up one slot's no big deal. But when you have 50, 60, 70 items like that, how much gil would you pay? How much would you give up in order to get 60 or 70 extra slots? And so I realized like I'm willing to do an awful lot. So I have cleared out, I think I'm up like 200 or 300 slots this week, which is huge. Mm-hmm. It's huge. So big deep purge.